Ladies and gentlemen of the Impact Zone fam, how's it going? Well, finally, they've announced a match for Slammiversary. You know, only 3 weeks out, only one of the biggest shows of the year. There is some other sorts of news here and there and whatnot that we will get to as we're going along, but the main thing that they have announced is Xia Brookside versus Ling Lee for the Knockouts title. And I said this so I don't know which video it actually was, but it was so long ago that I said, well, like, this thing has been slapped together so quickly. Like I said before, it's like Lei has only started to hold this title for like not even a month or so or whatever. Ariana barely held it for like a month or so as well. I can't even remember how long, because she won it off Lei, who'd only really held it for like a couple of months or whatever it was from whenever she won it as well. Like, so, and like Lei's, like I said before, Lei's title run that she had was absolutely like bottom of the barrel because you just did not have anyone that you really cared to put in front of her to actually give her like a reason to fight anyone. You didn't really have any stories for anyone like that actually, like, you know, had anything to do with the like winning the championship or why they were winning the championship, you know, or whatever. So, and again, you treated Lei more like a mid-card, you know, tag team wrestler, and you know, like, you know, I can get that. That's kind of what you were going for. You're going for the fact that she was a tag team person, and she has this relationship with Xia and yada yada yada, and all of that. But if you're not got anything else going on, you shouldn't be just being there being like, oh, we're a tag team for no real reason, you know, unless it's being like, oh, well, such and such is now the number one contender or whatever else it is to Lei, and now Xia and Lei are going to team up against them and somebody else, blah, 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 so that Lei or so that whatever can get their hands on each other or whatever, and so that you can kind of have, you know, somebody either pin Lei or whatever else it is, or Lei pin somebody else or whatever. Get that little bit of revenge or get that little bit of extra like stuff going on to sort of get that heat going for the match that's upcoming between the two of them and that sort of thing. So yeah, like that's where I would think that you would do that sort of thing. That's not really what they were doing. I don't know whether they knew what they were doing at times, and it kind of showed that whether they knew what they were doing or whether they just were like, bro, we just don't feel like we don't have time, or we just are going to give so much time to this or so much time to that or whatever. And I understand when it's like, yeah, this is a popular thing and whatever, and saying, hey, this is an important thing and we need to tell this part of a story or whatever. But sometimes you don't need 20 minutes to tell that story or whatever else it is. You know what I mean? Like I said that with Stax and Santino last week. I said, like, that could have been, like, under a minute or so. Like, you know what I mean? And it was way too long. It wasn't even really that long, but it was still way too long for what it was. And it's weird to me to see that, like, I'm back and forth on, and I know a lot of people are, like, talking about the whole Santino and Ariana feud storyline, blah, 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 whatever, and whatnot. That, you know, is, I'm assuming it's over. I don't know whether it's over, but I'm assuming it's over, at least. But a lot of people were saying, well, why wasn't that a Slammiversary? I have the distinct feeling that it was a WWE call. WWE said, hey, we can't let them go and wrestle and lose on your pay-per-view. Plus, we want them for our pay-per-view that's basically on the same day. So, see ya, bye. So that I think was a big part of the reason why they did that. A lot of the other matches, though, I do feel it is a little bit inexcusable because, like, a lot of the other people that you kind of had win these championship challenges, well, I say a lot. I mean, it's 50% at the moment, I guess, but still, at least, like, you are doing something with the other half of that. Not that it's that good, but anyway. Yeah, like I said, with Langley and this whole storyline to try to just cap it off, like, if you're not gonna put the title on Xia at this point, it's like, well, why the frickin' hell did we even do this thing to begin with? You know what I mean? This was the whole concept, in my opinion, to break them apart and say, okay, cool, now we're going to build Xia up, and then she's going to beat Lei, or whatever. You know, like, if Xia, here's the thing, if Xia was the champion right now, right, then I could see you saying, okay, well, now that, like, actually, in some ways, I almost think that that's maybe what you should have done. You should have almost put the belt on Xia, like a couple of months ago or whatever else it was, and then said, okay, well, Lei, and had her also turn on Lei and whatever else, and all of that stuff, and then have, like, Xia hold the title until Langley comes back to fight Xia, and then somehow, whatever. I don't know whether that's good or whatever, because I don't know whether I'm not a hater or whatever else of Lei, but I'm just not that interested. I'm just not that interested, and I don't see enough in her. Like, I think that she's very talented in many ways, and I do think that she could be a very solid mid-card to upper mid-card act, but I don't think that she's, like, main event level material. That's just my perspective on that. I don't think that she's, like, I don't want to say not talented enough, but, like, she's not, like, gearingly over enough, in my opinion. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe she's selling a lot more merch or moving a lot more things than what I think she is, but I just don't know the details of that. But again, I just don't think from her character or charisma sense that she's, like, in that position to be the top person. That's just me, okay? But, like, if she's going to, like, again, like, being a championship challenger is fine for her. She can be a championship challenger, but I don't really see her be, and she can even be champion for a short period of time or whatever else it is, but you have to say, okay, cool, right, well, what's next for you? Because, like, again, you can't just say, oh, she wins the belt, then what? That's what I mean. It's like, you know, it's like same thing for Mike Santana, like, except for Mike Santana's actually, like, in my opinion, he's actually over, and he's actually got the charisma and whatnot to actually carry being the world champion, being the main event level guy. Whereas Lei, I don't think does. She can be a bit player or whatever else it is, in my opinion, but for the most part, she, you know, and no disrespect to her or anything like that, but that's where I see that she fits and whatnot. You know, I don't see her as a consistent part of that. Well, I don't want to say the consistent part of the upper card, because she can be a consistent part of the upper card, but I don't see her as a consistent main event level champion. That's what I don't see, I guess. Like, yeah. So, but anyway, still, if you had Lei, like, chasing Xia for the title, I think that would just be a better, like, story, I guess. I don't know. It would be more interesting, and I'd be more invested, at least to some degree, because at least, or to at least then you're at least, like, saying, will Lei get her revenge? Will she, and how will she? Like, and that's kind of almost like, in some way, what you're almost, in my opinion, going to do, in my opinion, because again, like, in my opinion, like I said before, Xia is winning this match. So, at least in my opinion, I don't know, or at least she is winning the title at some point soon, because again, like, if you're gonna, like, this story has been brewing for months, in a way, but, like, the way you've put it together over the last, like, whatever, couple of months, it's been so fast-tracked to this point. And again, Lei has barely held that title for more than a month or so. But I do think Xia deserves the title 100%. She's been there for a long, 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 long time. And she's, like, insanely talented. And she deserves to have that title because she's been fighting for a long time to get it. And she's, like, I think her heel character, like, it really hasn't got quite really established yet. But it is there. And it like, I do think, like, a championship run can really help, like, establish a heel championship persona and whatnot for Xia. And I think, like, there are so many. Well, actually, I don't think there's so many people for her to feud with, realistically. But I kind of don't want to talk about one of them. But I guess I'm gonna have to talk about one of them in just a second. But still, I still feel like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I said before, it just feels like, well, we put this whole feud together for you two to face each other and for Xia to beat you. Like, or whatever. That's at least my perspective. Again, so, like, if you're not gonna pull the trigger on putting the title on Xia at this point, or even, like, I don't even know, like, why would... If you say, okay, Lei somehow, some way retains against Xia, then what? You know what I mean? Like, you've got a lot of great heel challengers, so it's kind of a difficult position to be in, kind of thing, where it's like, if Xia wins, it's like, oh, well, like, besides Indy Hartwell and, like, some other people that are more lower card and people that haven't even been there in weeks or in months or whatever else it is, it's like, well, who are you facing? You know what I mean? So that's where it's like, oh, man. But then it is like, well, at least there is that, like, litness for saying, okay, well, let's get whichever big-time babyface we can get over to get the title back from Xia or whatever. But then it's like, well, who else has a big reason to win that title? The only person that thus far really has that big reason is Lee. And it's like, I'm just burnt out on Lee completely. Like, I have no interest in seeing her be the champion again. No interest. Because it's just like, to me, again, like, same old shtick. Like, you know, like, there's no thoughts, head empty, this is what we're doing. And it doesn't matter how many weeks or how many months or whatever else it is, someone holds the championship. You know, and I get, like, sometimes, like, you can't do things in a timely manner, but again, like, maybe you should have let this thing cook for, like, 5-6 months or whatever else it was and had this at Bound for Glory. Like, you know what I mean? And then been like, oh, okay, well, now it all goes down. You know what I mean? So instead of, like, just, like, turning around, like, in a month or whatever else it is, it's like, oh, okay, cool. No, we actually cooked this feud and this rivalry, and the cracks were starting to form, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then you see, you know, this come to a head. And again, it would have been better for a lot of the other heel challengers in a way, I think, because it's like, oh, you know, Enya Black gets her chance. Maybe Ash by Elegance gets a chance or whatever. I don't know. Maybe Tessa gets a chance. Like I said, it's just, there's so many big time heels there. And it's like, wow. If we're not going to put the title on Xia, which I kind of, like, am starting to doubt, it's like, why did we do this whole freaking story to begin with? You know what I mean? And no one else has any real story. They're just there existing and vibing, at least with the championship. So I would say, like, again, like, how else are you going to cap off this thing? Or how are you getting to the next piece? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just, like, to me, like, you've almost put yourself in between a rock and a hard place, like I said. Because if Zaya doesn't win, I would be saying, dude, that's it for me, bro. Literally, that is it for me. I am leaving. I'm going back to England, or I'm going back to the Indies, or I'm seeing if AEW or WWE is interested in me. Because I've done all of this. I've been here for, I don't even know how long, 4 or 5, whatever it is, years. I don't know, 2 or 3 years, whatever it is. I can't remember. Too freaking long. And I've had flurries, and I've had this, and I've had that, and I've had the other thing, and all this other stuff, and yada, yada, yada. And you finally, give me this big time story, and you're finally going to, give me a main event and give me a proper, like, push towards the title to an extent, and then you're just not going to give it to me. Like if I'm just here to be a stepping stone for other people, then I might as well leave and go somewhere else. And this is another thing that's been happening for a long time. It feels like a lot of people, have just been like, well, you don't give a rat's about me. And, like, especially, like, the younger people, I guess, or whatever else it is, it feels like they're perhaps, like, there is a level of impatience or whatever else it is there with some of these people, and I want to talk about that more in a bit, but, there is that sense of, well, not entitlement or whatever, but there is that sense of, well, why are we not pulling the trigger to an extent? Like I said before, like Danny Luna, we should have pulled the trigger there. We had a big time thing with her and Jody Threat. Now Jody Threat hasn't been there in months. And it's like, well, why is she even still on the roster or whatever else it is if she's not going to, turn up, or you're not going to use her, or she's not going to be having a story or whatever else it is? Why do we have her on the books? You know what I mean? If we're paying money out to somebody just to have somebody on the books, and for AEW or WWE not to get them, then that's no good. We've got to be saying, okay, how do we get you here? How do we use you? And what do we use you for? Can't just be saying, oh yeah, you exist, but we don't really care because we haven't got anything factored in for you. Too bad. They're on the roster. Start going, okay, all right, let's figure out what we can do with you. Or are you even interested anymore? Or do you want to go to WWE? Do you want to go to AEW? What do you want to do? Because that's the thing. Like, that's the same thing with Zaya and apparently Mila Moore. Oh, not Mila Moore, sorry. What's her name? Not Mila Moore. The other one. Mila Grace. Jesus. Too many M names, apparently. But yeah, Mila... I'm going to get the fucking names confused. Sorry. You know who I'm talking about. She has just apparently left TNA. She asked for a release and said, hey, I'm going. See yous, bye, pretty much. Because, again, she felt like, hey, I've been here. Well, I don't think she'd actually been there for that long. And she'd been in a tag team for a long time with Harley Hudson and whatnot. But those girls, they didn't really get a lot of TV time. They didn't really get a lot of, like, anything for a long, long time. And that really sucks. I think, like, Mila, she had a lot. She had a lot of charisma. She had a lot to offer. She was, she was money. And she, like, if she said, hey, I want to leave, like, there is a level at which you say, well, we can understand that, and we don't want to keep you if you want to leave, but please don't leave. Please stick it out for another few more months or whatever. We've got a good program for you. We want you to be one of our main superstars. Talk her into staying, saying, hey, look, you've paid, we wanted you to come in. We needed a tag team, and look, Harley just had, maybe this is, a bit before that, but whatever. Maybe that was part of why, Harley had a singles match or whatever, and she's mainly been a tag team wrestler since she sort of came into TNA. But same with Mila, and it's like, well, she hasn't really gotten featured very much. And when she has, it's mainly been on Explosion. And I can understand, it's like, dude, I can only be here. And again, you've got your whole career ahead of you. So if somebody, and I think like this, again, to an extent, tampering, which I don't like, but if WWE or AEW or whoever is knocking on her door, calling her up and saying, hey, come over here, get an opportunity over here, I hope the best for her and whatnot. And I think that TNA needs to pull their thumb out a lot with a lot of the people that they've got. You cannot just keep doing the same shit and saying, your time will come, your time will come. Look, that's what freaking Xia Brookside's had to do for the last however many years it's been. And she's been promised and promised and promised, oh yeah, your time will come, whatever. And it's actually the same thing just about for Ash by Elegance in many ways. She was promised, I think, for a long time, oh yeah, your time will come, your time will come. And then when she was gonna face Jordan Grace, and I think there was plans for her to beat Jordan, I think those plans got changed because they wanted to do something else or whatever else it was. And then it was like, oh, a lot of things. And I think like that really leads back to the WWE partnership. And I don't know whether I want to blame the WWE on this, but like, again, it does feel like WWE has had some extremely questionable booking of late. And I don't tend to talk about WWE and their booking, because I don't care enough, because I don't watch the product, and I don't want to watch the product, and I don't care enough. But it's still, TNA shouldn't be the same. They shouldn't just have all this questionable booking. Like, AEW has some questionable booking too. Like, a lot of wrestling promotions have questionable booking to an extent. But when it's starting to drive away some of your young talent, or when you're having to, like, not beg and plead, but sort of beg and plead your talent to stay. It's like, dude, no. Push these young kids. Even so, like, I cannot fathom. If I had that young talent there, I'd be saying, okay, right, how do we make this girl our major superstar? Because she's already got the talent, she's already got the charisma, she's already got the look, she's already got everything that you need, she's already got the ability in the ring, at least from what I saw, at least to an extent, to carry this division and to be, a part and parcel of the division. She could be the main woman. Maybe not right now, but, like, she could have been. And all of that sort of stuff. So again, like, to me, it's just ridiculous that that they didn't friggin' pull the trigger, or didn't try to pull the trigger, or didn't even try to, talk her into staying and say, hey, look, come on. We understand, like, you've got your whole career ahead of you. And I'm sure some of that did happen to an extent, but to say, oh, she's just left, it's a bad look, bro. When, again, I feel like it's starting to be rats on the sinking ship. You know what I mean? It's like, if the young people that we've got come and go, and it's like, well, why did they even come here in the first place? Just to leave? It's like, well, this isn't, like, I understand that people are going to come and people are going to go. That's the thing. That happens. But when it's just about literally everyone, and it's like, even Ash by Elegance, I don't know exactly what, I'm assuming it's still because she's injured in some ways, to an extent, isn't on TV, at least doing promos or something, or whatever, backstage, so I don't know what's going on there. And we've heard like some stuff about Ricky Sosa. The main reason that he hasn't been on Impact or in TNA has been all the visa issues. And maybe like that was some of the issues that Mila whatever, was facing and whatnot. So, and again, like I've said stuff about that too, but like, dude, that's why I keep saying it's like, dude, let's move on. Let's get something else. But anyway, just about every other match, everything else that you've kind of built up or had something to do with in the last few weeks with any of, or almost any of the championships, is now, it's all happening next week. Why is none of this, none of it, not, and I wouldn't be a big fan of seeing Eric Young and Santana at Slammiversary, and maybe they're still gonna do that, but like, I don't know, but still, it's just like, why are we seeing this next week when Slammiversary is only a couple more weeks away? You know what I mean? And I could say, oh, well, maybe you're building to some sort of hardcore stipulation or whatever else it is, and that sort of thing. But then it's like, well, what are we going to do for friggin' Lockdown? Because Lockdown's right there, and if you're not going to friggin', well, you know, have this thing happen at Lockdown, then I don't know what you're doing. Even though that's not that big of a thing, but still, it's something, I guess. So, but yeah, I don't know, but still, like, same with a lot of other things, like the match between Ali and Casey Navarro, that's happening next week now. And I said before, like, Casey, maybe he'll be in the Ultimate X. And actually, Fabian Archer, I think, in a recent interview, he said, hey, well, he hinted at saying, hey, I'm probably going to be in Ultimate X, pretty much. So, you know, like, that's kind of interesting to kind of hear that, which is like, that's actually, you know, sort of what you've kind of already been kind of doing-ish to an extent with him, and you've just brought BDE back and that sort of thing to be like, oh, okay, let's flesh out this X division a little bit more, or flesh out that undercard a little bit more, or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's a real tough scene, in my opinion, when you have this whole thing of like, I don't know, like, you have all these matches lined up for next week. I mean, and it's like, why are these matches happening next week? Why aren't they having a Slammiversary again? Like, what? It's 3 weeks away. It's it's less than 3 weeks away next week. So, like, what, like, somebody was, and I actually think we were talking about this on Twitter, as well, but somebody actually DM'd me saying, you know, maybe they'll do Nick Nemeth versus Santana at some point, because he's got the call your shot. Dude, they fucking forgot that he's got that call your shot. They don't even remember that he's got that. So they're not going to bloody well put, or they barely remember that he's got that. And they, like I said before, like, it's tough, I understand, because it's like, I said this before, it's like the temptation to bring in WWE guys and that sort of thing. One of the main reasons being in that it's quite easy to bring those people in and get, you know, the more casual eyes on your product, to an extent, at least. But, like, it's just inexcusable to me, again, to have these matches on the next week, in a sense. It's like, again, I just can't fathom. I cannot fathom what the hell you're doing. You should have just, like, not had these matches at all, and just been like, okay, like, or not say, hey, this is happening next week. You should have just been like, oh yeah, this is happening at Slammiversary, or whatever. And then had them in some other match of some sort, or have some then in some other altercation, or whatever. Even like like some more altercations or whatever else it would be. It's like, yeah, that escalates the situation that says, okay, well now it's going to be this match, or now it's going to be that match, or whatever else it is. Tag team like title scene seems like, especially for, well, actually both of them seem really bad, but at least like the knockouts are finally getting some sort of challengers for those titles. And I said that before. I said, like, just announce it. Just announce it. Don't wait. Announce it as soon as possible. Should have already announced it. Let's make it happen. Or I hope they announce it at least next week. At least, because at least then it's like, cool, we've got that in the books or on the books, and people, yeah, we can see that it's gonna happen, but for frick's sake, let's land the plane. Let's see when it's gonna happen, and it shouldn't happen on some random episode, of Thursday, There's only so many things that, in my opinion, again, not just like a pay-per-view, because like when you're talking about any pay-per-view to start with, even just in my opinion, again, the low-hanging fruit of the C-tier pay-per-view or whatever else you want to call it, is you've actually got to work at making some of these things something people want to see. And to me, even if you were going to say, okay, Eric Young and Santana are going to wrestle at Slammiversary, I would be quite disappointed in that, because in my opinion, you haven't done enough to make Eric Young look like the monster or the thing that's gonna beat Santana. And even if you eventually get to Slammiversary and you decide to go, okay, let's put the title onto Eric Young, to me that's a step back. To me that's a wrong turn. And I know we've heard a few things. I don't know whether we actually really talked about it on the show here yet. But like that Santana's contract is supposedly up soon. I think basically in July at some point. I'm not 100% sure. But he's actually on all the promo material until December, basically, I think, until the end of the year, which is basically all the promo material that does exist. But hey, obviously, yeah, you could remove him from that said promo material. It would be another big hit to the company in many ways if he was to leave, because like, you just do not have, like, unlike before when you had Joe Hendry, you actually had Santana right there. I mean, like, you've got some good heels that are there, absolutely, but, like, to me, like, I wouldn't, like, not to say that Elijah's bad, but I wouldn't get behind Elijah to be the world champion. I don't see Elijah being the world champion. I see Elijah being a number one contender, or again, a semi-main eventer, and he's a great, semi-main eventer. But to be the champion, I don't see that. I don't care how much money he's kind of making for the company or whatever. It's like, to me, I not to say that no WWE guy can ever, well, I don't want to just say that he's a WWE guy, but still, like, he's a WWE guy for the most part. And there's so many other WWE guys that are there and that have done stuff. But to me, again, I want to see the new guys. I want to see, like, don't want to just see the Hardys. I want to see who the Hardys are going to wrestle against. Because, like, why am I tuning in if I'm just going to see the Hardys? Like, if that's all that you've got, it's like, well, why am I sticking around once they're gone and once whatever happens? So you've got to have somebody else, especially a young up-and-coming tag team or whatever else it is, for me to be like, okay, well, this other young tag team, they're going to be somebody or going to be something. No, there's no other real tag teams there. It's just they don't exist. The system, the Righteous, the Hardys, that's it. They're the only teams that exist. And some of the time they don't even exist. But yeah, like, to me, it's like, I don't care. I don't know. It's so hard to be like, I don't care about, like, the level which somebody is at right now, as in terms of star power sometimes. Like, because I was, like, going on about how I don't think Lei Ling's in that position, and I don't think she should be in that position. But I could see that if you took your time or whatever else it is, you might be able to get there. I don't 100% agree with that with her, but that's pretty much the thing. You can pretty much get there with pretty much anyone for the most part. You can make somebody into your next superstar. And it's much easier in some ways to make a tag team. Actually, it's kind of hard as well, but still, it is quite easy to kind of make a tag team work. It's actually very easy to make anything work, really. All you've really got to do is put them on TV, give them a direction, aka depending on what division they're kind of going in, and then feature them and let them win a few matches. Make it look like they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer every week, every month, whatever else it is. Are they going to become the next tag team champions? Are they going to become the next X Division champion? Are they going to become the next world champion? You know what I mean? Just showcasing they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer. You know, like, that's a very simple way of doing it. But it's a very effective way of doing it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter who it is, because again, yes, I understand that you've got to have your bit players, you've got to have your people that are not quite ready for that position, but still could be in the mix or whatever else it is. But still, for frick's sake, we need to focus on what we're actually going to see at Slammiversary, or what we're going to see, you know, there. Because again, like, saying, oh, we're going to have this match between Ali and KC, so what? What becomes of that? Does any, like, again, and it's like this match tonight between the Hardys and the Righteous. Like, actually a pretty good match, but it was probably way too long in many ways. They got, like, over 20 minutes out there. And for, like, again, they actually did a pretty good job with what they were doing, but it was just a big brawl. And you could have shortened that to, like, 5 minutes. You could have shortened that to maybe, like, 5 to 10 minutes instead of, like, 20 plus minutes, whatever it got. And that sort of thing. Because there was only, like, 2 or 3 key things that kind of happened during that match, realistically. And then, again, I think the match structure was, like, completely out of whack. Like, when they gave Jeff, like, the flower and he was spinning up and going crazy and all that stuff, that should have been, like, at the start of the match. And then he should have come back, like, at basically the end of the match, which would have only been, like, maybe 4 or 5 minutes later or whatever it was. But still, like, it still should have been structured that way, of saying, oh, let's give him the flower and blah, 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 all this stuff. And then it's like, Jeff's been taken out, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then he's come back somehow, some way, you know, yada, yada, and all this. But it doesn't matter. It was just too little, too late or whatever. And he was still too far gone in with whatever they gave him, that he still couldn't really help. So it didn't matter. So, like, yeah, instead of having this whole thing drag out and take so much time away from anything and everything else that you could have been doing, you should have been saying, okay, like, let's give some time to somebody else. Let's give some time to something else. Let's, you know, like, and like I said, like, I think a lot of people have been giving praise for AAA of late, with their show being only an hour, and they are, like, in and out and gone, you know, so there's no real, flaff. It's more TNA than TNA maybe has ever been. And again, I think back in the day when TNA was only like an hour long, maybe they did a better job of just being like, right, we've got to get as many, and sometimes that's bad, but it's like, if at least you're getting people out there and at least you're saying, hey, let's go, let's try to get these guys over as quickly as possible, or whatever, that becomes the goal. We're trying to get these guys from where they are to where they're going next, not just, well, they're going to be here, and then you're going to see them next week. And, the Hardys and the Righteous, who have had this long-going feud that really isn't over yet, is going to continue and is going to get 20 minutes. It's like, dude, what the hell? They don't need 20 minutes. And they didn't need 20 minutes tonight, Why wasn't that at Slammiversary? Or why wasn't... what are you doing with this? The Hardys aren't going to be involved at Slammiversary? You know what I mean? Or are they? How are they going to get back into this if they're meant to be, in the picture for Slammiversary? You know what I mean? So instead of doing this match, again, it's like, we should have saved this for after, Slammiversary or whatever else it was. So that then you can say, okay, or even maybe after lockdown, I don't know, but still, you should have been saying, that could have been like the lockdown sort of like build up or whatever else it was, because again, even though I disagree with having the Hardys there to an extent, and saying, they shouldn't be like the main champions, or they shouldn't be the main focus or whatever, they should be there, and they should be like a part of the production to an extent. If you've got them, why not use them to an extent? Absolutely, I understand that. That's fine. But they shouldn't be the only thing that you're focusing on. And it's like this whole Righteous feud that you've got is good in some ways, but it's like, well, where's it all going? What does it all mean? You know what I mean? That's been my problem with it from the beginning. You've kind of said, this is what the Righteous wanted. The Righteous wanted the Broken Hardys, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. What for? And you were sort of, it was on commentary tonight saying, they wanted to harvest their essence or whatever, yada, yada. But for what purpose? You know what I mean? What was that going to give them? What was that going to get them? You know what I mean? Again, what purpose did all of this serve? And it's fine to have some level of mystery and whatnot, but I think there's a difference between a level of mystery and a level of, we don't know, whatever, this is just a story. Just go with it. Enjoy the show. I enjoy the show plenty, but it's just like, well, what are you doing with these guys? Where are they going after this? You know what I mean? And there is no thought to being like, oh yeah, we'll have to, use the Righteous or use the Hardys or whatever else it is to get some other people to be, in those positions that they're kind of in. What happens when they're gone? Oh, I don't know. Whatever. It just feels like you're dragging your hands, dragging your knuckles, and being like, whatever. You're not going to have them forever. You're not going to have the Hardys forever. One way or another, you're not going to have them forever. That's not how it works. And at least, yes, they have a great program to go into and whatnot. But again, what are you doing with it? Again, if this was me planning out this story, right? And I was writing it out and saying, okay, well, why have we done this? How is this, paying off at the next big show? Because again, without the Hardys at the next big show, why are people tuning in? Unless it's like, oh, they're back. But what for? You know what I mean? What match will the Righteous be in that the Hardys can be like, yes, we're back, wonderful, or whatever, They haven't had a single feud with anyone else. And there's no one else for them to fight. Because there's no, like, the only other tag team that's been barely on TV has been the System and kind of the good hands or the great hands or whatever you want to call them. And they've not wrestled in months. So again, like, what are we doing? And that's the same thing that I said with, like, Myla and Harley. Like, even if they weren't going to win the tag team titles, why did they never have, like, a tag team title match? Because at least it would have been something, and you could have done something with it, and you could have been like, see, you're getting opportunities here, girls, you know. We actually think now that, you know, we've seen you for a little while, and the audience has kind of got to grow along with you, and da-da-da-da-da-da, that, you know, we want to see you both in singles roles, or we want to see you do this. Okay, we want you to wrestle this person. Okay, cool. You're going to lose here, but, you know, this is going to lead to something later. Okay? Right. We've got plans for you. We've got something for you. We think you've got something, but you've got to, you know, stick around. You know, all of this sort of stuff. Like, again. And, like, I would just wish I knew what they were doing. They don't have any more tapings in the can as of yet. They have another set of tapings coming up, I think, it must be this weekend. The 6th? Yeah, the 6th. So in the next couple of days, okay, I think it's the 6th and the 7th, they're going to have those tapings. Basically, anything and everything for Slammiversary, in my opinion, again, is going to be announced or made at that point, which is like 2-3 weeks out, which is just ridiculous to start with. Like I said before so many times, with so many other shows, you cannot have this, especially for one of your biggest shows, not even for one of your smaller shows. But now, like I said before, you've got AEW on the same night. You've got WWE coming on the same night. Like, what the hell? And here we are with our thumb up our bum going, well, we haven't got very much announced. And it's not even a month out. And I know WWE hasn't announced anything really, but, like, still, WWE, like, even now, like, despite all the things that they've been doing wrong and all the things that are going on there with their prices and all that other stuff, they're still getting huge attendances in comparison to TNA. And why would people tune in to TNA over WWE? Why would they tune in over AEW? You know what I mean? So that's where you've got to be. You've got to be saying, and it's the same thing for anything. It's like, why should you tune in to our show over, you know, boxing, or over MMA, or over football, or over basketball, or over the World Cup, or over this, or over Mick Jagger, and this and that, and whatever else it is? I don't know what's going on at any given time in any place, anywhere, and I don't really give a rat's, but that's what I mean. There's always other shows, not just, you know, wrestling shows, so you've always got to be saying, hey, come see our show for this, come see our show for that. Is Samoa Joe gonna, you know, beat Scott Steiner? Is, you know, Steiner, you know, gonna, you know, mean that Samoa Joe can't get it done, you know, whatever else it is. You've got to have these stories built in. You've got to have Samoa Joe beating people left and right. You've got to have Scott Steiner beating people left and right, being like, you know, the math is, but every time that Joe looks like he's getting the upper hand, somehow Scott Steiner puts him down, or whatever else it is. And then, you know, Joe is like trying to fight back and trying to fight, you know, fire with him. It's like, you know, this whole story of like back and forth things, different things happening. They don't need to just wrestle every single week. They need to actually have, like, okay, we're gonna have this rivalry between you two. Why? Because Scott Steiner's like, he's a known, like, asshole as far as, like, him being a promo artist and whatnot and all of that sort of stuff. He's got a big mouth. Joe's an easy target in some ways, and the fans kind of like Joe's, and they like, they know Joe is like no nonsense, kick ass son of a bitch, which we show all the time, and we want to show, hey, it's not just about the big muscles and all of that stuff, it's about, whatever. It's about, like, the fight in the dog, so to speak. Again, it's not the biggest dog, it's the biggest fight in the dog, or whatever, the saying, blah, blah, blah. So that's what you're trying to show. Joe, might not be conventionally, again, what you're looking for in a quote-unquote main eventer, and Scott Steiner might be, but you're going to say, hey, Steiner's getting on in years, and Joe is a fresh young, well, don't want to just say, not experienced, but he's a fresh young prospect that can get there. He's, tough enough. He's resilient enough. He's, whatever. And this is going to be a proper feud between these two that's going to go back and forth over weeks and months and whatever else it is. And then it's going to culminate, and finally, somehow, some way, Joe is going to overcome. But that's not going to just be it for Joe. He's still got to overcome other things along his journey and whatnot, or whoever it is, anybody, pick anybody that is there now. Same thing for heels. You've got to be saying, okay, so how does Xia or whoever get the belt now? And then what's she going to do after she wins the belt, or whatever? If she's not going to win the belt again, like, okay, well, what are we going to do with you if you don't win the belt? You know what I mean? We've got to have a plan, and you don't need to show us that plan until it's, like, ready to happen. But it doesn't feel like you've got a plan. It just feels like, this is where we wanted to get to, so we're just getting there, and then we'll figure it out on the night or whatever. And I feel like a lot of things have been called that way, and it's like, dude, you should have known what you were going to do, weeks before. And that's the same thing with, like, Santana being added to the match at Slammiversary with Joe Hendry and Trick Williams. Like, that should have been announced, like, weeks and weeks and weeks and months or whatever it was before that. It shouldn't have been announced, like, a couple of days or a couple of weeks or whatever it was before that. It should have been like, no, this is what it's going to be. Or you should have had saying, well, why is Santana going to be there? What's he going to do there if he's not going to be in the main event? You know what I mean? You should have had something for him other than just, oh, he's here and he's talking and, people like him and whatnot. You should be saying, okay, what's that for? Other than, and again, like, this has been the problem for a while, like, where it's like, and I hope that the situation does change, but, like, I don't know how it's going to, but that's what they need to do. This is the same thing for Myla Grace or whatever. It's like, you have to hold on to some talent more than a year or more than a couple of years for people to actually, like, have some level of investment in them. People aren't, and maybe Harley will get there. Who knows? Because she seems to be sticking around, maybe, at least for now. And I don't want to say that she hasn't got it. I think that she has got something, and she could be somebody that is, at that position sometime soon, maybe in the next year or so, whatever. I don't know. But I don't want to see her be there for the next, like, 2 or 3 years or whatever else it is, the same as Xia Brookside, and, like, be like, oh, yeah, we'll get to you one of these days. What? Bro, capitalize on what you've got. This is the same thing that WWE did with a lot of these other guys that you're bringing in now, saying, oh, I'm so sorry you didn't get your opportunities in WWE. Like, what? If you're doing the same thing and letting people go and just being like, "Ah, yeah, whatever, we'll figure something out," I can get that you'll figure something out. That's fine. But again, you shouldn't be letting people go. You should be saying, or even letting people go, "Ah, whatever, I think it's best for me to leave." Like, it isn't good to be like, "Oh, let's cling you to your contract and let's keep you and you'll be unhappy or whatever." No, please don't read that part into it. I'm trying to say, hey, they've said, hey, come on, give me something to work with here. You never call me, you never bring me in, and maybe, like, again, it is a part of the visa issues or whatever else it is. But still, like, if you don't have plans for me, why have you even bloody well hired me in the first place? You know? So I don't blame her. Like, to an extent, I don't blame Danny Luna for leaving, because it was like, dude, I've been here for a long ass time and it just seems like you haven't got any plans for me. Like, and it doesn't seem like you've got plans for Jody Threat either. And it just seems like you're very happy with like same thing with like, even with Tessa Blanchard and some of these other people that you've got there. It seems like whatever they do, it's just like, yeah, sure, you won a match. Cool story. What's that leading to? Absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Even though it was against the number one contender, it was like, oh well. And I get like this whole story with like Demon Bunny. You wanted to do that. That's cool. That's great. You could do that at any time with them. You know what I mean? Or you could have left Tessa out of it, or whatever else it was, and that, or you could have had Tessa be challenging for the title, and then because the whole Demon Bunny stuff was happening, she lost the match because like all that shenanigans and whatnot or whatever. So that would have been a way to do it, rather than being like, oh, you're going to beat her, but it's not going to mean anything. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to be like in contention for the title, actually. And I can understand in some ways why perhaps they wouldn't do that. But again, like if you're going to do these things, you need to make these things mean something. Again, so why did you decide, oh, well, Tessa's going to beat freaking Jody Threat? Why not have somebody else come along and beat Jody Threat? Because at least then you've got a reason to be like, okay, let's start pushing this person. And it could have been Xia too, like even in a babyface way. I mean, it wouldn't have made 100% sense still, but whatever. At least like saying, hey, let's find something for you guys to work with, rather than just, oh, well, whatever. That didn't really mean anything. And nothing really means anything. Because that's, again, like, the more you don't show that these things are consequential, the less people will pay attention and will care. Because it's like, well, we don't think that any of this stuff is leading to anything. You know what I mean? Because you haven't shown consistently that all these things lead to something or somewhere for someone. It's like, and then that's a bad look, because it's like, people, again, like, I don't understand, again, why some people go to AEW or go to WWE, but like, because of like the bad perception to an extent that they have, but still, like, they still go because of like the prestige, and they hope and they cross their fingers that, they're going to be different or whatever else it's going to be. That's what their hopes are, So, and like, I think a lot of people, even same thing for TNA. It's like, well, I'll ignore all that, and like, if they hire me, they hire me, and we'll see how it goes. So, and if it doesn't go well, like, I think some people are smart to be like, I'll give it a year, or I'll give it a few months, or whatever else it is more, or give it a few more months. Nah, okay, it hasn't worked out. Okay, time to move on, time to do something else. Fair enough. Like, because again, same thing with TNA dangling that carrot in front of talent. WWE's been dangling that carrot in front of TNA, all those carrots in front of TNA, and now it's like they're just putting on a pay-per-view on the literal same day that they're having a pay-per-view, and it's like, dude, why are you doing that? Like, what are you doing? And it's like, again, is that just to spite AEW or whatever? What's going on here? You know what I mean? If it was a joint show or of some sort with WWE, which I don't see that you would have, but if there was some reason to be like, oh, okay, we're going to have all this WWE or NXT involvement at least, then it's at least like, well, at least there is that to be like, oh, okay, you know, WWE cares or they're still working with the relationship. Seems like that relationship is pretty much over at this point, which in some ways is good, in some ways it's bad. But yeah, I don't think the relationship was ever really all that good or ever really all that helpful for TNA for the most part. So, and I think but despite that, last year was their best year for the most part. And if they had have had their new AMC deal, their broadcasting deal last year, they probably would have been way, way, way better off last year than they are this year. They've had some good numbers thus far this year, but those numbers are going down. And that's not just because of all the other competition. I've talked about all the other stuff that's been going on here just about every single week, with a lot of the decisions that have been made and whatnot. And a lot of the, when you're watching it, you're asking yourself, those sorts of questions. It's like, I can enjoy the show. I can enjoy the matches. I can enjoy the promos that you do, or whatever, some of the moments, some of the things, but it's like, so what? If you can't give me a show that you're building to, why even have that show? You know what I mean? So you might as well not have Slammiversary. You might as well not even have a next week. You might as well say, okay, the company's shut down and that's it. We're done. Bye. See yous. And for 20 plus years of loyalty for some fans, it's like, well, what the hell, bro? Or even other fans that are just coming in, why would they care? If you're gonna turn around and just say, oh, none of that stuff matters, whatever, don't worry about it, whatever, things happen, then stuff, then things and stuff, and those things and stuff don't really matter. They never eventuate to anything unless you're our one or two handpicked people or whatever else it is that we've already chosen. Yeah, we don't give a shit about you. What? Bro, that's not the way it should be. You shouldn't be a biased person being like, no, we only really like this person for reasons or whatever else it is. So they're going to be our main eventer or whatever. So yeah, that's it. We don't need any other main eventers. No, we don't need anyone to face Santana. We don't need anyone for him to work with. No one else is a main eventer, just Santana. That's it. Well, make another main eventer. Make some of these other people mean something instead of just kneecapping them at every turn and then saying, look, they failed there. It's obvious they're not a main eventer. That was your choice to kneecap them in the first place. So, and some of the feuds and some of the ideas that you've got, like the whole AJ Francis thing with Elijah, it's not horrible, but it's like, what are we doing with this? You know what I mean? Francis has been there for 3 years, I think, at this point. 2 years, whatever it's been. Something like that. Why hasn't he, he has got maybe 2 or 3 chances at the title. What? He's probably one of the biggest draws that you've got, one of the youngest guys that you've got that's actually a decent, high level heel. And you're just like, ah, he's here. He's an attraction. Whatever. Never gonna be the man. What? Why not? You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't get it, and this is what I mean. It's just like if I was in charge and in control, I would just change everything up. I would say, okay, that's it. We've got to change everything up, and things have got to change. Like we've got to start featuring of more things in general. Like we just need to feature things and think like not to say that you can't have a good 15-20 minute main event or a good 15-20 minute opener or whatever else it is, but you know you need to work more on saying, okay, even if these guys or these gals weren't featured on this episode this week, they have to be tried to be featured next week on next week's episode. And maybe we'll feature the Hardys a little bit less, or maybe we'll have them on a little bit less, or maybe we'll wait for them to have their thing next week or next month, because we could do that at any time. And we need to build up these other guys. So I keep having to say the same shit, but it's the truth of the situation. These are the things that need to change. Just the sometimes it's how quickly you get to the things, because sometimes it's like, get to the freaking point. This is taking way too long. And other things is just like, we've absolutely sprinted past the point and got to the friggin' end post before it's even begun. Or the way we've put it together has come together all in the last, 5 minutes. And it's like, frick's sake, why can't you have something that is building, and then culminates, after weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then it's like, okay, here we go. Now, a few more weeks go by, stuff happens, and then you go, okay, cool. Now, after weeks and weeks and weeks and all this other stuff, here we go. Here's, this thing that people have wanted to see for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally it happens. Rather than just being like, and I get, again, it can be that symptom of being like, oh, we can see this thing coming from a mile away. But it's like, yeah, at least you can see something coming, and you might not still feel like, oh man, well, we don't know whether this person's going to win or going to lose. Maybe, but, you should have that distinct feeling of well, they could win, but they could also lose, I guess. But it shouldn't be it shouldn't always be black and white. They're gonna win, they're gonna lose. That's it. Man, I've got no, I don't think there's any point in even talking about this, because it's oh, wow, this person's gonna win, that person's gonna win, this person's gonna win. How surprising, how shocking. Whoa, what? After a month of build, this person's gonna win. Whoa, what? And that's where I'm with Eric Young and Santana. It's dude, even if, again, you were going to put the belt on EY, it's why? Again? Just to put it back on Santana? Serious? I just don't know. Anyway, guys, I'm saying the same stuff again, so pretty much that's it for this one. Hope you have enjoyed it. Hope you'll join me again in another one. So be good.